Welcome to Nonprofit Nerd Impact Unleashed, where conversations are designed for nonprofit leaders by nonprofit leaders to inspire, educate, and motivate. Get ready to dive into the world of nonprofits where the nerdy passion and unstoppable dedication of those making a real impact is celebrated. Together with your host, Jarrett Ransom, the inspiring stories, tactical insights, and game-changing strategies of nonprofit leaders will be explored. Join us for real talk with real people. Jarrett and her guests unravel the mysteries of successful fundraising, uncover the secrets of effective advocacy, and nerd out over innovative approaches to solving social challenges. Nonprofit Nerd Impact Unleashed is your go-to podcast for no-nonsense discussions with real-life superheroes of the nonprofit sector. Get ready to unleash your inner nerdiness and discover or rediscover how to change the world together. Now let's dive in and embrace the power of our nerdy side.
Hey, and welcome back, my friends. I am so glad that you're here. Today, I'm excited to welcome Kate Harris to the conversation. Kate is the owner and principal of the Kate Harris Group, where she specializes in nonprofit strategy and collaboration. With more than 15 years of experience helping organizations navigate partnerships, strategic alliances, and complex collaborative decisions, Kate brings a very thoughtful and practical perspective that every nonprofit leader can benefit from, and yes, that means you. As you listen, I encourage you to pay close attention to the conversation because one idea really stands out. Whether you know it or not, the decision to collaborate or not is a choice your organization makes every single day. Collaboration isn't simply a last resort or something to consider during times of crisis. It's a strategic leadership decision that can help shape your organization's future. And in this episode, Kate shares why collaboration should be a part of every nonprofit leader's toolkit. She unpacks her 5-stage collaboration compass process, and you'll love it too. I was fangirling on it. I think you're going to like it. She also addresses common misconceptions about mergers and partnerships and challenges us to approach these decisions with curiosity rather than fear. Imagine that. Let's dive into this insightful conversation with Kate Harris. But before we begin, a special thank you to our podcast partner, Bloomerang, for their continued support of this conversation and the entire nonprofit community. We are so very grateful for your commitment to helping organizations build meaningful donor relationships and create lasting impact. Well, hey there and welcome. I am so glad, Kate, that you said yes. For those of you listening, I am thrilled we have Kate Harris with us today. Kate, I always like to start off by asking what I think is a simple question, but it is open-ended. Tell me about yourself and the work, sometimes the roles plural, right, that you play in this nonprofit space.
For sure. Thanks for having me. It's really nice to be here and get to talk to you. I'll frame it this way. I've worked in the nonprofit sector for over 15 years now. And what I've observed in different hats, from being a consultant to being a frontline staff person to being a director of development, is that the challenges that nonprofits exist to solve are far too complex for any single organization to solve by themselves. You really only have to spend a day in the shoes of someone who's trying to access this fractured network of services, and it becomes immediately clear why collaboration matters. And so the work that I do is squarely in that space of how organizations work together with each other. And we can talk a little bit more about the collaboration continuum and kind of what I mean by collaboration. But for me, it's really about keeping the people that we serve at the center and organizing our organizations to better serve them through structural changes, collaborative agreements, shared services, and even sometimes mergers.
Thank you for that. There's a lot in that yes, I hope we do touch on and unpack. I think that, there's a lot of leaders that quietly wonder, maybe when they're going to bed at night and all the things are swirling in their head, right? They're thinking, is a collaboration what we need to consider, maybe even a merger, as you said, or even closing, dissolving the organization? But I also think Kate, that some leaders, like, they don't always know how to name what that feeling is when they lay down at night or taking the shower and really like, getting back into the thoughts of the day. So are there any early warning signs or signals, I should say, that you see that you tell a nonprofit leader, right? Like, this is when you should start exploring, or this is, what a collaborative path might look like. What does that even like transform into?
Right. Yeah. So here are the conditions that would make a nonprofit leader want to think about or explore potential collaboration. If you are a nonprofit leader anywhere in the world who wakes up in the morning and plans to go into work, you should probably be thinking about collaboration. I think there's certainly triggers that can make it more urgent, right? Can make it time bound. Changes in funding, changes in staffing. You know this from your interim work, right? Changes in leadership are often a catalyst for having conversations about collaboration. So there are these kind of natural catalysts that lead organizations to think about this in a more strategic and formal way. But as far as just like contemplating the idea, right? Noodling on it in your own head, I think it's something we should be thinking about all the time, every day. And it's actually something I wish that when organizations were doing strategic planning, it was one of those required questions of like, who are we collaborating with? Are those the right organizations for us to be collaborating with? And who should we be collaborating with that maybe we're not? And the same question of, should we continue to exist, right? So I think these questions of collaboration should be a constant part of our strategic thinking, in the same way that a strategic plan is not a thing you do once and then sit on a shelf. It's a constant process of thinking strategically. And I think having a collaborative mindset is the same.
I love the answer. And, to take it down to the first soundbite that you were like, if you go into work, wherever work is, virtual or in an office, right? Like, you should be thinking about collaborations. Like, it is as simple as that. It really should be a part of every conversation. And as you were responding, I threw my hands up in the air and I was like, yes, preach, because I literally answered a very similar way for something else. And it was really about succession planning. And I think that ties into the same conversation, right? Like succession of the organization, succession of the mission, succession. Like, these are conversations we should not have one time. We should have them, I believe, consistently. But I also think that there's a lot of fear when people hear words like merger or even fiscal sponsorship. So I'm curious. I know there's lots of misconceptions that we hear, or that we have taken on and kind of embodied. But when it comes to collaboration and sustained collaboration, right? Like, what is it we need to consider? What are those misconceptions and myths that you just want to bust and say, stop thinking about it that way, because that is maybe staining the way in which we think of the conversation and just approaching any potential collaboration?
Yeah. I mean, first, collaboration is a spectrum of options and potentially structural changes, something that changes the way your organization operates. That's not good or bad. It's just a tool in the toolkit. That's all that it is. And so we shouldn't be treating it as this big, scary thing. It's really about the application of that tool that matters. I think a lot of the fear comes from what we know about mergers in the corporate world. And while there are some things that we borrow in terms of process and due diligence checklists and things like that, nonprofit collaboration is fundamentally a different animal. Not only is it trying to create different value in the ecosystem, it also has to serve the people that you're trying to impact. Because at the end of the day, unlike a corporate merger, nobody's walking away with a big check, right? We go through a lot of the same processes and a lot of the same challenges that you do in a corporate merger, but you have to do it with no personal benefit sometimes, right?
Right.
And so it's a really, really different value proposition to explore this. And I want to specifically address your question about fear. I think that the fear from executive directors and CEOs doesn't come from fear of trying it. It comes from fear of the reactions of their staff and their board. So really the fear we have to address is the fear in our staff and our boards. And so for staff, I think one of the things is just telling stories about it, and we're getting better at that. So I work with an organization called the Sustained Collaboration Network. They are a network of member funds that do grant making to support sustained collaboration and have some great resources on their website. But that organization has done a great job of telling more stories about collaboration and making it really clear that you might hear about a corporate merger in the news, and it's all about layoffs and consolidation and things that sound really scary. But if we can tell stories about nonprofit collaboration and nonprofit mergers and keep staff at the center of some of those conversations, it sort of demystifies it and makes it a little bit less scary. I think for board members, they really want to do a good job at being a board member. And it's kind of hard because there aren't always great board member schools that you get to go to learn about this. The thing I think is most compelling to take the fear out of it for board members is to say, look, you have to have a mindset that is mission first, organization second. I think board members think that their allegiance has to be to the entity. But the sort of 2.0, the advanced school of nonprofit governance as a board member is understanding that your job is to protect the mission, not just the entity. So at the center of any strategic decision to collaborate has to be the people who are most impacted, the communities the organization exists to serve. And a more sustainable organization is, of course, a worthy goal, right? But it's secondary to mission advancement. And I think when board members understand that, it reorients everybody around the table about why we're exploring this, not just to save the entity, to better serve people.
Hey, you are just knocking these out of the park. And I hope that everyone listening is really hearing, right? Like, I even want to go back and listen to our conversation because there's so many great nuggets of clarity and insights, which takes me to another question, because hopefully many other listeners are having the same, conversation with themselves. But when there's multiple organizations and they're considering what collaboration and working together looks like, that could be, perhaps a coalition, shared services, or perhaps that M word, a full merger. How do you help leaders decide the right level of collaboration without rushing into what could potentially be a wrong structure? Or is there a wrong structure?
Yeah, I think there isn't a wrong structure. I think there can be structural misalignment. So think of it this way. If the mission of your organization is the destination, that's where you're trying to go, your organizational structure is the vehicle that you are using to get yourself there. It is literally the structure that you sit in. And the formation of any durable collaboration strategy is ultimately a shift in organizational structure. So envision one of those kind of bike share programs. If you go to a city and you can borrow a bike for an hour and take it back, that's an example of shared services, right? If you merge two organizations, that's like taking two separate bicycles and turning them into a tandem bicycle and actually welding them together so that they can't come apart, right? So it's not that you can ride either kind of bicycle. You can use a bike share bike. You can use a tandem bicycle. They're going to get you there. It's just that one is better suited for a different situation. And I think too many nonprofits are trying to travel somewhere really extraordinary, like to the moon, in a vehicle that wasn't designed to go the distance. So ultimately, this is about alignment between structure and mission. And so I start every project structurally agnostic. Organizations will come to me and say, we think we might want to merge, or we think we might want to share a staff person. And my response to that is always, great, let's start there and see where it takes us. Because usually there is some collaborative structure that could help you advance your mission. But I don't know what that is until we get into it and learn a little bit more about why you're trying to explore this, what the problem is that you're trying to solve, and what needs to be different at the end of that process. So I take organizations through this kind of 5-stage process I call the collaboration compass that starts with this really easy questionnaire about what you're trying to accomplish. And I think when you get clear about that and what's driving this for you, the collaborative structure that fits almost reveals itself.
That's beautiful. As you were giving the analogy, and I'm very visual, so I could see the bike, the ride share, I could see the tandem. And then I'm thinking of like, so many of us feel like we're on a unicycle, on a tight wire, and juggling all these things. It's like, help me choose which one to go to next. Like I want to upgrade, I want to up level, but like, which one do I choose? And I love that collaboration, the conversation, right? It's like, this is a vehicle. We can get there in a lot of different ways, but let's explore what that could look like and what might be best for us. Again, I just think you're bringing so many valuable insights. I have seen so many organizations in the last, I would say, 18 to 24 months really starting to explore collaborations differently. And that takes me to, I would love, 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 Kate, if you could and be willing to share a real example where collaboration fundamentally changed the trajectory of an organization or a community, right? Like, and I'd like you to share what really made it successful and what did you see them do differently than most are doing? It's a loaded question, but there's a lot in it.
So when I started this business, I was told, you won't be able to exclusively work in the space of collaboration because mergers are rare and infrequent, and they also are only for organizations that are failing. And I said, okay, well, that's interesting. I appreciate the perspective, but I'm curious what the data says. So I set up a Google alert for nonprofit mergers and started posting about them on LinkedIn under the hashtag Merger Mondays. I have been sharing a nonprofit merger or collaboration story once a week for 3.5 years, and I have a backlog of about 150 of them that I just haven't gotten to. Yeah. My point being that I could give you 1,000 examples. And I think the example that's going to be most relevant to people who are listening are going to be organizations that are most like them. So we can talk about some of the big ones that people have heard of, but they're not going to be relevant to a small organization with a budget of $500,000. And I think that actually makes it even more intimidating because it feels like it's not for you. So not to ditch your question, but my recommendation is actually to check out Merger Mondays. We have a backlog of them all on the website. You can search by location. You can search by the issue area that you work in. So housing and homelessness, education, environmental organizations, and look for a story that feels familiar to you. You can also go on the Sustained Collaboration Network website and look at some of their case studies for organizations that have actually done this. And my big recommendation is once you find an organization whose story inspires you, pick up the phone and call them. There is not a single leader that I have met who has been through some kind of a collaboration journey and lived to tell the tale that doesn't want to talk to you about it, that doesn't want to share their experience with you, because it's a lot less scary than it seems in the beginning, right? And for them to be able to tell you how they felt about it early on and how they feel about it now that it's in the past, I think is so much more powerful than any single story that won't really resonate with everybody listening.
I appreciate that. Merger Mondays sound amazing. I love that you have compiled and really found, it found you through this Google alert, right? But like tons of examples. And you mentioned my interim work, and I've been honored, privileged to serve in so many, 12, in fact, different interim roles. Every time I'm in an interim, Kate, I always explore what a collaboration looks like. What are what are the collaborations that currently exist and what are the ones that we might want to look into, and position the organization, or at least propose to the organization, different paths of what it might look like. I shared with you before we started the conversation and recording that two of my previous clients have gone through different journeys, right? Like one did partner with another organization, another one is dissolving. And so throughout this whole conversation, I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you, because I really, just as I am passionate about hiring professional interims to serve in that capacity, I am equally passionate about sustained collaborations and what that means to our sector, what it means to our community, and what it means to the impact that we can make on the entire world when we consider this as an option versus a threat. Because there are so many paths we can take. And I wish we could all adopt you're agnostic to it, right? Like that viewpoint. So if we can enter in the chat in a way where it's like, we are exploring without expectation of outcome. That is what I hope I am hearing in this conversation, but I hope others are hearing too, Kate. So I'm sure people are going to want to get in touch with you. You mentioned this. I want you to repeat it again. It was like a 5-step or a 5-question compass. Tell me what that was, because it sounds amazing.
Yeah, the collaboration compass. So this is something that we've been working on for a while and have been trying to release it in bits and pieces out into the world. But the idea is that it starts with this early discovery and assessment process. You show up better as a partner when you know yourself. And it's really important to me that there are elegant exit ramps at every single decision-making point. Because I have stories I can tell you about clients who started down this road. And not only did they find that that particular partnership wasn't the right one for them, but they left that negotiation process with a much clearer sense of their own identity. And when everybody in the community, because donors do this, they go, well, I always confuse you with this other organization, or how come you don't partner more? By going through this process of examining the potential for collaboration, you'll finally have an answer to that question. So it's not just about the collaborations that should happen. It's actually about justifying the collaborations that shouldn't happen and being really clear about why you need to stand on your own 2 feet, why that's a benefit to people in your community, and the other ways in which you're collaborating to improve things for people in your community. So I just think, we really, to me, this process is designed so that anyone can participate in it, so that anyone can get started with it, and anyone can exit at any time. Just because you start an exploration process doesn't mean that you have to take it all the way to the finish line if that's not what's best for your organization. So I'm happy to talk to anybody who is collaboration curious, whatever your starting point is. And so, you can find me on LinkedIn, you can find me on my website, and I'm not everybody's cup of tea, which is why I'm connected to a bunch of other practitioners around the country who do this kind of work and are building a field that I think can be really responsive to this moment. But we're also figuring it out in real time with all of you, because like you said, a lot of people are having the conversation now that we're not ready to have a few years ago, and we're just trying to keep up.
We're definitely trying to keep up. Kate, one final question, and it's often my favorite, but I like to ask and close up the conversation by asking if there's a final takeaway that you would want other leaders that are listening to this to know. What is it you want to leave them with today?
I think that collaboration decisions are structural decisions. And the goal is always to use the right tool for the job. You don't drive a nail with a screwdriver. And so to me, being able to approach this kind of work with a little bit more neutrality and with a little bit more curiosity can really open up options. And the sooner you start to explore this, the better. A lot of organizations are struggling right now and thinking of collaboration as a last resort. But the sooner you begin these conversations, the more options you will have. And to me, that's how we better serve people in our communities, is to create options, to create choice. and to provide that dignity to the people who are out there doing the really hard work that I know they're doing every day.
Yeah. Great conversation, Kate. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's been wonderful. Again, I am leaving feeling reinvigorated around these conversations because I know they happen, but they often happen behind closed doors secretly because, people are afraid of what this might mean. So I think you have really brought some tangible items to the discussion and have really strengthened us to have more conversations out in the open. So thank you for joining me. And again, I appreciate all the work you do throughout our nation and beyond.
Thanks.